Undercurrent, sponsored by John Hughes in Victoria Park. Choose your station before you choose your program. Absolutely.
Well, hello and welcome to a brand new week of Undercurrent. I'm Christy Molliker, and tonight's episode finds me suitably underdressed now that the weather here in Perth has turned, well, rather wet and chilly. Well, first up on tonight's show, our mining companies here in Australia generally get quite a bad rap, but perhaps all you have to do is scratch the surface, because up next, let's take a look at the brand new outreach program from Apache.
Apache's outreach program started in Western Australia more than 10 years ago and has grown to become an important part of our local business. Through this program, Apache provides vital support to a range of Western Australian-based not-for-profit organisations.
The Apache outreach program is all about Apache giving back to the community. There are three components to the program: our corporate partnerships, which cover the areas of health, education, arts and culture, and community assistance. There's also our matching gifts program, whereby employees that donate to different organisations, their donations can be matched by Apache. And then of course there's our volunteering, whereby our people can give back to the community in a more practical way.
From our corporate outreach point of view, there's an opportunity here to be part of a solution and to, I suppose, deploy some of those corporate resources through a well-organised organisation like the PMH Foundation. We can help fill a need which otherwise would go unmet.
My name is Lane Walkley. I've been coordinating the Ronald McDonald Make a Meal program for Apache for the past 4 years. By preparing and sharing a meal, our staff gain a valuable insight into the struggle that these families are going through. This is one of the most popular outreach programs we run at Apache, and the feedback from the participants is always extremely positive.
My name's Peter Beckford. I work for Apache Energy. I'm Veronis Island. My job's an integrity supervisor. How I got involved with the outreach program was I was first approached by my field superintendent on the island. The concept was to work at Y-Shack and paint the place and do all the jobs that needed doing. This is a voluntary thing. Apache is very, very committed to the outreach program. All of the things that they do and the sponsorship and the donations that they give. As a corporate citizen, Apache is very, very good in this manner. This is why myself personally, I have no problem getting on board from a volunteer basis with this program. It's a very worthwhile program.
Apache's outreach program supports a range of institutions working to improve the quality of life for people living in Western Australia. The program has resulted in many great outcomes and positively impacted the lives of people in need or programs that require funding to continue to make a difference.
Through the Apache Outreach Program, we believe that Apache is demonstrating its role as an important partner in the West Australian community.
no matter how much we choose to deny it or even try to hide it with those face creams or those expensive cosmetic procedures, we are all getting older. But the important thing is, do our WA housing laws support our ageing population? Well, next up, Emily Baker investigates.
Experts say laws concerning housing and accommodation are seriously disadvantaging WA's elderly population.
The current laws are very complex. Housing decisions are difficult in later life and people have fewer choices. There are fewer options available to them, and so certainly the legislation needs to be a lot more user-friendly and senior-friendly. There's a wide range of legislation that covers housing, everything from the retirement village legislation, and there are several acts that cover that. The Residential Parks Long Stay Tenants Act, which covers people living in caravan parks, Residential Tenancies Act. There are many, many pieces of legislation. It's a very complex area, and we need to see what aspects of the legislation are difficult for older people to cope with and what we can do about it.
A new study, headed by Dr. Eileen Webb from the University of Western Australia, along with the Council of the Ageing, will investigate these laws.
What we're going to be looking at in our research is we're actually going to be identifying all of the relevant laws, and we're going to ask for information from government departments, from the community, from seniors who have actually encountered problems with their accommodation needs, and put the law side by side with these problems and just sort of say, is this law adequate? Is this assisting seniors to be secure in where they're living in their later years?
It's part of the big picture of what's going on with housing in Australia, and particularly in Western Australia. We have a housing crisis where we've got a shortage of housing, very high rents, very few seniors can afford private sector rents. We've got a shortage of community and public housing.
I've been with the Salvation Army in their lodgings for about the last, I'd say, 12 years.
It's very expensive over here because of, you know, the rentals, but it's like that in Melbourne too. Rentals are very high because there's just not enough housing to go around. And so, you know, that creates problems for lots of people.
Do you wish the government would do more rather than the Salvation Army, just to give you a place to stay?
I wish the state government would help a bit more, yes.
The rate of home ownership amongst retirees is actually decreasing, so people are moving into retirement with a mortgage, and they're having to consider options like reverse mortgages.
Reverse mortgages can get people into a bit of trouble, and if they're not done properly, they can be a good product, but sometimes they're not so good, and we want to look at the laws in relation to reverse mortgages and making sure they're as safe as possible for seniors. Other examples are you may have an elderly person or persons who've, you know, say for many years they've got a home which is now, you know, worth a lot more than it was when they purchased it. But because of often generosity or sometimes naivety, but they help out family or they may, you know, help other people, and they may end up, you know, being financially abused and actually lose that home. That's just a couple of examples. Unfortunately, I can give you many, many more.
So we need to help people to be better informed and to make good decisions as they move through that housing career, remembering that we're all living a very long time, and that our last resting place used to be in the 60s, now isn't until the 90s. We're living a long time, and so those housing decisions are increasingly complex, and it's important that people make good decisions at the right time.
What we want to make sure is that we make recommendations where seniors have the most protection that they can have in relation to security of tenure, no matter what form of accommodation they're in.
The Council of the Ageing encourages seniors to come forward if they've had any problems with housing or accommodation and to seek advice. This is Emily Baker for Undercurrent.
Well, in her very first assignment for us here on Undercurrent, we sent Miles Riley out to the streets of Perth to find out if you think our union should be more regulated. Gosh, I hope you were nice to her.
Federal Labor MP Craig Thompson could be in the firing line again.
Following Craig Thompson's departure as National...
Mr Thompson did. Mr Thompson
Cruise, Mr Thompson, Craig Thompson.
A recent report has claimed there is a need for increased financial transparency within trade unions. According to the Institute of Public Affairs, this can be achieved by shifting regulations from the current Fair Works Act to the Corporations Act. Trade unions would then, however, fall under the very same legislation as those corporations they exist to protect their members from.
Union funds and prostitution should not mix, obviously, but no, look, I think union funds should be a lot regulated than they are, and I know they should be a lot more audited than they probably are.
It would be a great improvement if there were.
I believe that a lot of things about trade unions reflect basic democratic principles. The right to withdraw your labour is one of those things that, like voting, can't be manipulated.
If unions are paying all this money to sort of be together for the right reasons, then there shouldn't be a couple of dodgy guys using it for dodgy stuff. So there definitely have to be more regulation within the unions.
Yep, more transparency the better, absolutely.
I think there would be a need for tighter regulations.
The underlying factor of them being transparent should overrule it all. I mean, I don't know exactly the details of what it is, but look, it's something I'm sure they could nut through, but I'd still like to see it become that just for the transparency. I mean, I'm sure they could work with some solution for it.
Any organisation should be accountable in terms of its finances, especially when it's soliciting funds from members and other sources.
I think unions should be regulated not only within themselves but with an independent body. That is, doesn't have to do anything with the corporations. And I think it should be the same for the corporations as well.
I always think it's just whatever's best for the employees. So if they're there to protect them and this is moving away from that, then no.
I think the way it is now is sort of the way it should be, because it's just two different philosophies and two different approach to sort of work harmoniously doing the same thing. But if like one jumps to the other side or vice versa, then it's just you just become too corrupt.
It is. I think we need to keep the unions because they have played a big part in Australian history, but we do need to tighten their laws.
The regulation is the way to go, tighter regulation, especially if they're spending it on prostitutes. But yeah, it'll have to be coming from an independent body.
Well, the people of Perth appear to be divided on the issue. While some argue there is no need for tighter regulations, others believe that increased accountability and transparency are essential. What most people do seem to agree on is that shifting union regulations to the Corporations Act is not the most effective way to move forward. I'm Miles Riley, reporting for Undercurrent.
Well, look at that. It's even too cold for ice cream. Definitely should have workshopped the outfit before leaving the office. Doesn't matter, there's always next week. And speaking of next week, if you would like to have your say as part of our Vox Pop segment, you can find us in the city on Tuesdays around about lunchtime. I'm Christy Mollica. Catch you for more Undercurrent on the other side of the ad break.
Undercurrent, sponsored by John Hughes in Victoria Park. Choose your station before you choose your program. Absolutely.